Schneider's Bakery episodes are like Newton's third law. For every episode, there is an equal and opposite episode. Meaning, every time there's an episode that brings up a concept and does it poorly, there's another episode somewhere out there in the Schneiderverse that does the same concept way better.
Hey guys, Pie Guy Rules here, and welcome back to the Bizarro Bakery. Today's episode will be a little special because, between the fact that Sky Whale and Game Shakers in general was so similar to the iCarly pilot and the show in general, and the fact that there's so many episodes across the Schneiderverse that are so similar to episodes that happen later on but worse, really inspired me to come up with a whole series about episodes similar to episodes on the bottom of the bakery. Plus, I wanted to showcase that the company can do some things right, and once upon a time were a lot better than they are now. If you even look back to my bottom of the bakery number 7 on Sky Whale, you can actually hear me talking about a new series that's coming up when I mentioned that it's similar to the iCarly pilot. Both episodes literally end with a character saying, "Let's celebrate this with a party." That's how similar they are. So if Sky Whale is a donut that has been disgustingly burnt and tried to be salvaged with a few sprinkles on top, then iPilot is a sesame seed bagel baked to perfection, because it's a lot better for you than a donut, and bagels and donuts are similarly shaped but have entirely different tastes to them. And that's the thing. The differences between Sky Whale and iPilot are night and day. It is so different, and that's primarily because iPilot is incredibly well written. Here's the story and the entire setup to iCarly. After angering their nasty teacher, Carly and Sam get stuck having to watch through a bunch of auditions for the talent show. Most of them are incredibly boring, but there's a few kids with weird and unique talents that Carly and Sam really like. And in between acts, the two make fun of their annoying teacher. Freddie, who is filming the talent show, also films Sam and Carly doing this. He then accidentally uploads footage of the two of them making fun of their teacher instead of the actual auditions onto a video site, where they get a few thousand views, and a bunch of positive comments. When Carly and Sam go to their teacher the next day, they want to have all the weird kids be in the talent show, but their teacher, partially mad because of the footage of the two of them making fun of her, and also partially because she's just a stick in the mud, only wants the boring standard talents to be featured in the talent show. Out of frustration at not allowing kids to just showcase their weird talents and being told what to do all the time by this teacher, Carly decides that they should make their own webcast where they can say and do whatever they want, and have the first show be all about these kids with weird, wacky talents. When you break it down, the show does a great job of presenting all of these circumstances that make a very logical reason why Carly would come up with the idea for a web show. You have the fact that Freddie posted footage of Carly and Sam bantering back and forth to each other that accidentally got them a lot of views and popularity, combined with the idea that there isn't a place to showcase kids with weird talents, and the fact that this teacher constantly tells them what they can and can't do and say. So it makes sense why Carly would want a show where the two of them get to host, which is something that's already been proven popular, that features kids with weird talents when they have no other place to showcase their talent. And it's also a giant take that at their stick-in-the-mud teacher. Let's compare that to what happens in the Game Shakers pilot. Their teacher gives them an assignment to make something that will improve humanity. They fail at making a moving plate that will encourage people to exercise while they're eating. The one girl has already previously designed a game where she just clicks on a narwhal to change the color of it. And from that, suddenly the two just decide to make a game, and it's all done off screen. Their teacher then tells them that video games can't improve humanity, but at that point it doesn't matter because their app already went to #1 in the App Store and they're filthy stinking rich. Do note that they didn't make this game to get back at their teacher because their teacher never expressed any hatred of video games until after they already made the video game. So basically the backstory is their teacher assigned them this ludicrous assignment to make the world a better place, and they just decided to make a video game. Neither of the two girls are gamers, or at least they don't talk about being gamers or really liking video games in any form. The only thing we see, and we only see this after they've already made the game, is that the one girl likes to play with Simon, which is not a video game, but in fact a physical game. iCarly's pilot got all this information across in 22 minutes, whereas Sky Whale took 44 minutes to do their premise, and they didn't actually show the game being made. There's just a lot of fluff in there, a lot of YouTuber cameos that are kind of pointless, and characters bragging about how good the game is. There's a whole part where Double G's crew shows up at the Game Shakers headquarters demanding their money, and they're like, well, we'll come back tomorrow. Game Shakers do nothing, the crew shows up again the next day at their school, chases them to their headquarters, and then they have a discussion about what to do about the money that they owe them. There's absolutely no reason why they needed to come back the next day and chase the kids down when they could have just had the scene right there and then. And how about the comedy? In Skywhale, you get obnoxious blonde kid and in iPilot, you get Sam and Carly talking about Miss Briggs's pointy boobs. I'll let you decide which one's funnier, but personally, I'm gonna have to go with pointy boobs on this one. That was an odd sentence. Anyway, let's talk about the actual practicality of these kids doing this. Two kids making a live broadcast of themselves goofing off is totally something that is very realistic. Granted, this came at a time when YouTube was still young and so was streaming, but that's still something that is very easy for any kid to do. Yes, Freddy just so happens to have all of this really expensive fancy equipment, but even if he didn't have that stuff, it would still be relatively easy for these girls to do this. Compared to Game Shakers, where the one girl is just good at programming. And we know this because she says she's good at programming. We don't get to see this in any capacity, she just says it and the audience is just supposed to believe it. Oh, sure, she made a quote-unquote game where she clicks on a narwhal and changes its color, but if I had to guess, it probably doesn't take that much programming skill. And like I said in the review, it is totally possible for kids to be good enough at programming to make a successful phone game because, you know, it's not as complicated as making something like a AAA game or anything like that, but kids making a very successful app isn't super common, and if you want to sell us on this uncommon, if still possible, idea, you have to actually show it. Show how good she is at programming. Show maybe why she's good at programming. But no, we don't get any of that. How about if you compare the girls' successes from one show to the other? If you look at iCarly, their first webcast only gets 37,000 views. Still quite a bit, but nothing super insanely unreasonable. And we, the audience, actually get to watch them perform the webcast, so we get to see firsthand why and how the girls got to be this successful. Because, you know, we're watching the show. And admittedly, Carly and Sam have good chemistry, and the acts that they feature are definitely weird enough to get people's attention. Also, the idea of kids having power through using social media to get their own voices heard was something that was very, very new at the time of this episode coming out, so to see a webcast like this was different and new at the time. YouTube was not at all a big thing at this point. And on Game Shakers, their app shoots up to #1 in the App Store, and we don't really get to understand why. I mean, sure, if you want, you can actually download and play the game for yourself. It is free, but I shouldn't have to actually play a game to understand something in the episode. And also, the game is just okay. It's not like it's anything revolutionary. It's just a simple phone game. And also, even though the episode goes through great lengths to show us that all these YouTubers and other people really, really love this game, no one actually explains what it is about this game that makes it so good, like why they like playing it. No, we don't get any of that. It's just, well, the girls have success now because, the story says they do. Yeah, there we go. Do you see how these episodes are similar yet also entirely different? Comparing the two, it looks like Skywhale is iCarly's pilot again, except completely insanely over the top in the worst possible way. It's unrealistic, and it's not a good, well-told story. It's basically, these two girls decided to create an app one day, and oh, it got super famous overnight with no reason or rhyme to any of it. When you take out the whole Double G stuff in the back half of the episode, that's it. That's the entire story. The girls do something and it becomes successful. Really, when you get down to it, Game Shakers looks like a desperate, sad attempt to try to recapture the magic of iCarly. But when you compare the premises, iCarly's works a lot better than Game Shakers simply because of the subject matter. Two girls doing a web show is something we, the audience, can actually watch. Making video games is not something that's actually very interesting to watch. I'm sure you could do something like showing the creative process, but from what I've seen of the show so far, it looks like they just want to go with wacky exaggerations like having the character go up in a jetpack because somehow that tests some sort of gravity for their new space game or something. Watching the actual games that the girls put out isn't very entertaining, but watching an episode of iCarly inside an episode of iCarly actually is. iPilot is so much better than Skywhale. It's a better written story that provides unique circumstances that lead to the creation of the web show. It's actually funny and it's concise and to the point. It's a lot more down to earth and relatable, and the characters have a real chemistry with each other. Skywhale is, well, it's iPilot if it were written by the modern Schneider's Bakery crew, which it was. And it is. And when you look at the differences between these two pilots, you really see the difference in the company in the past and in the present. iCarly might have had some major problems with later seasons, and even a few bombs in the earlier ones, but in general, it had a very strong start and was, at one point, a very well-written and likable sitcom. Game Shakers is crap. It's crap to try and cash in on the whole mobile gaming fad, and because they know no matter what they do with these shows, kids will keep tuning in to watch them. No matter how stupid they make them, there'll always be a younger generation. And that's why, unfortunately, there's no stopping these shows, and they're just gonna keep spinning out of control. And if you like Game Shakers or any of these shows I talk about, it's okay. It really is. I'm not blaming you. I'm just pointing out the fact that there's no incentive for Schneider's Bakery or Nickelodeon to ever change or improve, because no matter what, they're always going to have an audience who's never seen this kind of show before. That is just going to automatically eat it up regardless of the quality or the content. And if child actors didn't grow up, I'd be willing to bet we wouldn't have all these spin-offs, and instead iCarly would still be going on today. It's kind of weird to say this, but honestly, they probably would have been better just trying to reboot iCarly than give us Game Shakers. And trust me, I am not a fan of reboots, but at least iCarly had a lot better of a premise than Game Shakers. And I'd rather them come out and admit that it's a new take on iCarly than just trying to do this discount iCarly. Oh well, I could compare Game Shakers to iCarly all day and night, and trust me, when there's more Game Shaker episodes on the bottom of the bakery, there will probably be more iCarly episodes to counter them on the Bizarro Bakery. So I'll continue this discussion when I talk about the Bizarro version of Poison Pie in a few episodes from now. And if you're like me and haven't seen iPilot in a long time, I do suggest you go back and check it out. Sometimes it's easy to forget, but iCarly did start off from a pretty good place. And I was actually surprised at how complex and interesting the premise was, in that it wasn't just two characters saying, "Oh, let's just make a web show and be weird because we're wacky and quirky." Bleh. Looking at you, Game Shakers. Oh, and before I go, I should probably mention that in the bottom of the bakery, I mentioned that ProJared made a video talking about his experiences with going on the show. Since then, he's actually taken that video down. He hasn't said anything about it as far as I know, but there's been lots of speculation that Nickelodeon may have forced him to take it down. Personally, I doubt Nickelodeon would make him take it down, but I have a feeling he may have done it himself. While I appreciate the guy being honest about his experiences, at the same time, no one wants to work with the guy who's gonna go back and blab about what a terrible production it was and how terrible the show he just worked on was. It's not a great career move to badmouth people you've worked with. If anyone has any more information about what happened and why he took the video down, please let me know, but as far as I know right now, unfortunately the video is just down and gone forever. Pie Guy Rules, out.